It's something that maybe doesn't come across as clearly in my work, but I'm a traditional designer from day one. I've always just loved composition. I love type. Whenever I approach a project, I always approach it in the sense that I'm designing it like anyone's designing anything, except I just use my hand to do it. Instead of laying out type, I draw the type. Instead of laying out the lines and the space, I'll draw it all out. So anything that I do, I'll approach the same way as any other designer, except I just try to make it a little bit more traditional and just a little bit more hands-on. I'm Jon Contino. I'm a designer from New York, and I do a little bit of everything. Growing up as a kid, as close to Manhattan as I did, having that kind of urban influence has always been a really big part of me, who I am, and there's a certain sensibility that comes along with it. A lot more aggressive in every aspect, and I still keep that to an extent, but when I met my wife, she kind of introduced me to more of that Hudson Valley type of mentality. Older design sensibilities, like more traditional sensibilities and stuff like that. But they're, you know, since it's in a modern day, you can kind of see those things. I mean, there's a lot of farms around here, but it's mixed with farm-to-table restaurants. You know, it's old and new, and I love that the Hudson Valley kind of has that. You know, also being able to raise my daughter in a place where I don't have to worry about crime as much, or, you know, running out into the street with a million cars. Even though it's hard to, you know, work from a home studio, it's the best thing in the world to have her run up and jump in my lap and want to draw circles with me. In my eyes, there's no better way to raise a kid. What do I know though? I only got one. Once you really start getting into your business, I mean, it's just tasks pile up. And the only way to get stuff done is to just bite off a little bit each time, and just get one thing done at a time, and just start crossing things off the list. And with this project, we're going to be doing bandana design for my wife's brand, Past Lives. The cool thing about a bandana is you can use it as artwork, you can use it as utility, you can use it as really anything. The way that the brand sits in its own kind of, you know, visual language is a lot to do with communicating with forgotten times or olden times or anything like that. It's kind of bringing up the past. Our process for the bandana, it's conceptualize, find reference material, start sketching ideas, revise your sketched ideas, and figuring out your composition. Once your composition is figured out, we're going to get into inking, then we're going to scan, and then get it ready for print once we're all said and done, and we'll get right into it. For me, I've worked with bandanas a lot before. We want it to be used as a display piece, but you want it to be able to be used as a utility also. So we're going to do something that's very fun and enjoyable to look at. But if you want to use it to, you know, clean the grease off your car or whatever, you can use it for that too, and just throw it in your back pocket and beat the hell out of it. What I really want to tap into is a little bit of the secret society mindset. And one thing that I've been collecting over the years are these organizational banners. They could have been for the Freemasons, for the International Order of Odd Fellows. They could be for a sewing club or a gardening club. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at exactly what makes these banners unique, and I'm going to start taking from their DNA and learning from their structure and creating my own. Past Lives has already had a lot of cool things. We did these tarot card lighters. What I'm looking to do here is maybe pull some of these elements from the designs that we've already done and maybe utilize them in this banner. You know, I definitely like the idea of the crow on top of the skull. It's always been a fun one that I've really wanted to use for something, so I'm kind of leaning towards that. Analyzing the shapes of these banners is a great way to start. They definitely share elements of why they're banners and why they look like this. They, you know, they have decorative bottoms, they have, you know, drapery, they have tassels that hang down, all these kind of cool, funky things that create these unique shapes. I love these kind of like triangle type shapes that are going on here too. I love almost, it's like the reverse pennant style. I'm gonna kind of play off this a little bit. I love to work with smaller thumbnails. First thing to do, I always do, is just kind of get the basic shape down. And it's, you know, it's kind of like this. It's almost like a reverse coffin, which is kind of badass. Another thing to think about that I should say while I'm drawing this is hierarchy. I want to have some kind of meaty area around here. So what I'm going to do is, you know, I got this shape going on here. I really like these step downs. I want to do something with that. You know, we're keeping it relatively simple because the detail is going to come. So this is the area that I'm blocking out. And you can see there's a lot of details that come. A lot of these are super detailed. Some of them are super simple. I think I want to go somewhere in between. So here's our basic shape. What comes with these, of course, is these little kind of hooks at the top, these fabric hooks that needed to kind of hang from something. If you're going to hang these things from the wall, they have to hang somehow. So this kind of comes in here. You get like a cool metal bar that kind of comes across, with some balls at the end, or I don't know, some kind of arrow type shapes, something like that. And then with this particular one, I mean, if you're holding a flag, there's a flagpole. So I'm kind of thinking maybe we do something with like a flagpole type of feel. And that's going to go up through the top, maybe come down through the bottom. So it's got to hold it up. So right away, you're kind of seeing there's a function here. With that, it's like, it's kind of cool to start throwing in a little bit of decoration here. There's some tassels. And it's really starting to feel like these kind of old school banners. A lot of these also have cool like inner borders and stuff like that. So I'm going to add just a couple of things, you know, just a couple of quick sketch marks here to create that inner border. And then maybe this one's a little bit different. Maybe this is a square border where we had some kind of semicircles to begin with. And I want to do something in the middle here because this area on the bottom is kind of cool. The template is defining itself almost. When you pick certain areas to work in and then kind of let the rest figure itself out, there's a lot you can do there. So this is the kind of area I'm working with here. I think maybe I want to do some type here. I got some ideas of what type of wording I want to use that works. And, you know, maybe something in a triangle shape here, since this is giving a cool area for us to work with. So I've got the basics laid out. In terms of symbolism here, we start up here with the all-seeing eye. It comes down here to a crow perched on top of a skull with two daggers through it. It's kind of vague, but I like to keep the symbolism kind of vague, and it has a kind of feeling of life itself. And the candles kind of go along with that, symbolizing different periods in a lifetime. So this kind of whole center area here has that feeling of life, and the all-seeing eye is basically, you know, witnessing the extent of it. And then below we have different phases of the moon rising and setting with some clouds underneath it, kind of showing like a microcosm of that cycle. So we'll get this in the computer, and I'm going to open up an Illustrator document and start drawing shapes around it. So getting into Illustrator, I'm just going to start drawing shapes. I'm going to drop the opacity in this to about 15%, and I'm using magenta here so I can really see what's going on. So we got this shape here. This is kind of a pyramid shape. We'll step it down. 1, 2, 3. Just to get the basic form of everything. So it's ironic. It's funny because this actually was drawn pretty close to where I wanted it to be. Get these hooks up here. Duplicate that. And it's always good to just keep centering things to make sure they're all kind of where you want them to be. So I'm just creating basic shapes here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is I've got my shapes in here. These are my guideline shapes. In the absence of tracing paper, I use Illustrator and I use a printer. It makes my life a little bit easier because my hand is clearly not perfect. So this helps me to at least align things in a more perfect way. So I'm going to change this color from magenta to 10% cyan. And what that does, it creates what's known as non-reproduction blue, so that when I bring it back into Photoshop, I can adjust the levels as such that I can drop the blue right out. So now that I have this all laid out, what I'm going to go back in and do is draw this all in pencil again. I've got the perfect layout set up, but now I want to more finalize the thumbnail. I blew up the thumbnail to maybe 3 times the size of what it was. And now I want to go in there and get some of the detail down so that when I do go over it with ink, it's going to be pretty quick, and we can just get it done. What I'm doing here, I don't really do it any differently than it's ever been done. I just use the computer and the printer to duplicate what tracing paper has always is always done. So I'm still doing all the layers, I'm just not using 1,000 pieces of paper to make it happen. Once you start putting ink to the page, you really start to feel like what the final product is actually going to be. Alright, so once I got into the inking process, what I really wanted to do was make sure everything was tight, everything was clean, and have the least amount of mistakes as possible moving forward. So the next phase of the project is scanning this bad boy in and tracing it and getting it ready for print. I'm dragging the scanned JPEG into Illustrator, and what I'm doing with this is, over the years, I've developed a live trace or auto trace setting for my particular style of illustrating that kind of picks up my hand almost exactly to how I want it to look in the printed piece. So what it does is it leaves me with a black and white image to play with and shapes to play with underneath. And I'm just going to get rid of some of the white pieces I don't need. So what we got here now is an almost perfect copy of where we want to be. Going to align some stuff, and then I'm going to want to go in there and get some contrast in here and put some blacks in, start coloring it a little bit. Because we're going to print this in one color. I like the look of the one color print on the bandana. I think it gives it a cool old school style feeling. So now we're in a pretty good place right here, but I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it because you never know. It's always good to play it safe. Now I'll come in here, and what I need to do is come into this group layer, and I'm going to have to start pulling things out that I know I want to be negative. So we got that, and we got these guys. So I'm going to take these, I'm going to make them white, and take this background, I'm going to make it black. So now we're starting to get some depth. It's all about balance too. Keeping everything balanced is really, really important. As soon as things start looking lopsided, they don't look good. And that goes for everything in the world. And now I'm just really just eyeballing these things. They don't have to be perfect. I like that they're not perfect. I like that they're kind of weird. So I like to keep that as much as possible. Yeah, see, the angles match up really nicely, but everything else is kind of weird, so I want to keep that. And I'll just center it to make it a little bit easier on the eyes, but I like that, so that stays. We got a nice finished design. We're going to print that on a bandana, and what we're going to get out of this is a good way to just double check that we like how it looks. It's just to do a quick mock. So we'll go into Photoshop. We'll do a square. Pick a color that kind of looks like the natural color of the fabric. Paste it in there. And we'll just multiply it to knock it out. So that looks pretty good. It's not too heavy. It's pretty easy on the eyes. You know, it's going to be just enough to take this plain piece of fabric and just make it just cool enough where it's, you know, it's you can use it. You're not going to feel bad about rubbing it on something dirty and actually using it as a utility, like I said. Or if you like it, you know, you can hang it up and it still has the same effect. You know, we didn't go super crazy, but we kept it nice and simple. We got something really cool out of it. We can use it for whatever we want now. So the next thing that we'll do from here, we like how the mock-up looks. We're gonna run right in and just get this thing ready for print. So take this, copy it, paste it, make sure it's centered, which would be 9x, 9y, and just, you know, size it up accordingly. Just give it enough breathing room so it's cool to do whatever with, and, you know, beat it up if you have to, and still keep the main details of it ready to go and very visible. So a couple hours in, got the design done, got the finished file for the printer done. Next step, save it out, send it over to them, and hope that they do a good job. All right, so when we were designing everything, we were talking about doing
you know, we were looking at some old school stuff. We were looking at some, you know, vintage style banners, all these different types of things. So, you know, I wanted it to have that type of nostalgic feel to it. So we got these great cream colored bandanas. You know, they have great transparency to them. They got a great texture to them. It's a vintage black print. So we mixed up a special batch of ink so that it's not a super hard black. It's got some life to it. You can kind of see the texture through it. It feels a little bit aged. For this particular job, we got exactly what we want. It looks great, and I think everybody's going to be very happy with these.
Just to recap on what we did, we picked a product that we wanted to run with, a bandana. We came up with an idea of what we wanted to do, which was kind of mimic a secret society type of banner. We found our reference material. We used some of that reference material to create sketches and thumbnails. We took those thumbnails and we fleshed them out a little bit more, and we created a couple of sketches that were more detailed, and then we inked. We started drawing, we fixed little bits and pieces here and there, and then after that, we scanned it in, made a quick couple of cleanups, traced it in Illustrator, and sized it up, ready for print. So we're done, we're a few hours in. I got a couple hours left on a Friday afternoon to squeeze in some more stuff, and hopefully I can get to sleep tonight.